My name is Ryan Nurse, and I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor and thriver who has also suffered from and overcome depression. So I'm here today to tell you how sometimes our most profound periods of pain can also turn out to be our greatest gifts of growth. Because adversity can quite often turn out to be a blessing in disguise. And from my own experience, I've found that adversity is the prerequisite to growth, success, and true happiness. I believe hidden at the very core of adversity is the key to progression and lifelong happiness. It isn't going to be easy to find this key, but once you have obtained it, it will unlock the barrier to your next level of life. So adversity can be a gift if we choose to let it be. Because not many things in life are 100% guaranteed. But two things are that we are all born and we will all die. But it's what we do with the opportunity between these two events that really matter most. So I've got a few questions to ask you guys before we start. And I'd like you to all raise your hands. And I appreciate it's been a long day and I can see some tired faces. But if you could raise your hands if I ask you a few questions. So I think the first one's going to be quite easy. How many of you have ever been 18 years of age? Just raise your hands for me. Everyone, there we go, amazing. So we're on to a winner already. So how many of you have children? Amazing. How many of you are doing what you do, whether it's in your work, your career, in your business, for your children? We've got a few raised hands, okay, brilliant. I'd like to take you on a little journey today. I want you to think back to when you was 18 years old and you first went out clubbing. I want you to share some of those feelings that you felt when you first went out as an 18-year-old. Does anyone want to share with me or want to shout out at all?
I can't remember that far.
Ash, how did you feel when you first went out clubbing?
That's probably more like 13. Bit nervous, bit scared. Will the fake ID work?
Yeah. Luke.
Did you say blackout drunk?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Anyone else? Any feelings? Fun? Excitement at all? Anyone?
Yeah,
okay.
Facebook page somewhere from when I first went out, because I definitely had Facebook when I was 18. So yeah,
rub that in, Catherine. Carry on.
I'm just so youthful. No, actually, Facebook's been around for a very long time. But yeah, I guess excited, a little bit nervous maybe as well.
Okay.
It's the first time going out on your own and stuff.
Okay, well that's brilliant. So thank you guys. So I'd like to take you back to when I was an 18-year-old boy, and this was back in 2011.
Oh, shut up.
So back in 2011, I went on a night out once with some friends of mine, and we was at a local nightclub, and the music was pumping, the drinks were flowing, and we were literally dancing the night away, and we were having the best time of our lives. But only until it was time to go home. So we made our way out into the car park to get into a taxi to make it back to the safety of our parents' homes. But as we did, we noticed that some older men followed us out into the car park and they removed us from the taxi. So after a short disagreement with these men, we thought it'd be wise to find an alternative way back to our parents' home. So we got into a separate taxi and we left the car park and we turned left and we turned left again onto a dark, unlit road. And as we made our way down this road, we noticed straight away that those bright white headlights from that vehicle that we'd just been extracted from filled the interior of our taxi. So we went from excitement to make it back to the comfort of our own beds, to fear, to worry, to confusion. And then there was this loud, angry voice that come through to our driver's walkie-talkie, demanding that we pull over. So we didn't know what to do. We was asking the driver questions. Why are you slowing down? What's the reason for you for stopping? But he was just silent. There was no answer. And he bumped up onto the curb and he stopped. And that same vehicle that we'd just been removed from pulled up behind us and it turned its headlights off. And then there was this eerie sound of silence. What happens next? There was this loud thump on the passenger side front window, and my friend opened the window to see what the issue was. But as he did, he began to get punched through the window. So I done what any normal person would do, which was to open my door to try and stop this madness. But as I did, my door was ripped open and I was greeted with that same fist. I hadn't even had a chance to take my seatbelt off yet, and I was being pummeled in the left side of my temple. I was like a sitting duck. And at one point, I honestly said to myself, this is how you're going to die. But then I said, no, Ryan, you can't let this happen. You need to get this seatbelt undone. You need to get this seatbelt undone. And I was panicking. I was trying to get that buckle undone. And I did. Thankfully, I managed to pop that buckle. And as soon as I did, the beating stopped. I exited the vehicle from the driver's rear door and I run down a side road and I called a friend to come and pick me up. And the whole way back, I remember my heavy head was just spinning like this gyroscopic feeling. And my friends insisted that they take me to hospital. But I thought, just because I had a few drinks and I've been beaten up, everything would be okay in the morning. But that wasn't the case at all. I remember the last thing that I remember was getting back to my parents' home and putting my hand on the handle and walking through that door. And then later that Sunday morning, after my parents failed to wake me up, I was rushed to hospital. I suffered from a fractured skull and a blood clot due to a bleed on the brain. I had to be put into an induced coma. And when my parents got to see me that evening, specialists said that he'd be highly unlikely to survive the night. 3 days in, however, I was still being kept alive by the life support machine. And on the third day, my parents were invited to the hospital. As my parents went into this smaller room off of the side of the intensive care unit, the specialist that had done the work on me sat them down. And as they sat down, he said, due to the severity of Ryan's injuries, and because there is zero brain activity, we would highly suggest that you switch his life support machine off. So for you parents out there, just imagine if that was your child. What are you going to do in that situation? Some people would freeze, others would just agree. But my dad done something that ultimately saved my life. My dad stood up and he said, no way. I know Ryan more than any of you know Ryan. He's a stubborn little bastard and he takes his own time to do anything. You need to give him that time. And by my dad doing that, it saved my life. They did give me that time. And a few days later, they decided to reduce the sedation to bring me out of the coma. But it failed. I wasn't breathing by myself and the pressure was increasing within my skull. I had to be put straight back into the coma. And doctors once again said to my parents, look, you need to switch this machine off. He's not going to wake up, and if he does, he would never walk or talk again, and he would be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. But my parents said no. Because they had that hope. That's what we need in life, people. We need hope. We all need hope to cope. Have only positive expectations. And that's what my parents had. They knew deep down that I was going to come back around, even though the doctors insisted I would never ever wake up. So that second time, they tried again. And thankfully for me, I did start to breathe by myself. And it wasn't like I sat up and I was talking. It was just a little line on the screen that was just moving to say that I'm breathing by myself. Nobody knew the true extent to the damage that was done to me because I wasn't talking, I was just laying there. And before I actually woke up for the first time, I was actually gifted an out-of-body experience where I honestly believe that I viewed myself through the eyes of my Creator. And in this out-of-body experience, I remember seeing every single face that I'd ever seen. And they were all silently sobbing, just tears. but I honestly believe that I'd been sent back to this earth to complete the job that I'd yet to finish. And when I did actually wake up for the first time, I remember looking down at myself and I had needles in my arm, I had tubes penetrating my skin. And then all of those memories to that night prior to being attacked come flooding back. And I literally cried myself to sleep. But then soon after this attack, soon after this trauma, this traumatic event, I met which is now my ex-partner. And we went on to live this amazing, this perceived perfect life. We moved out with each other, we bought a home, we had matching cars, we went on multiple trips away, and we had this huge TV on the wall as well. We was living this life that society had told us that we need to live in order to be happy, in order to be successful, in order to be perfect. But this perfect life wasn't so perfect at all. It felt forced sometimes. It wasn't that great. Like, this perfect life didn't exist. We ended up going in 2018 on 5 trips abroad. That was the most trips that we'd ever been on in 1 year. And we just got back from our last trip to Florida, the end of November 2018. And my partner of over 6 years said that we should stop spending as much time with each other. Deep down, I knew something wasn't quite right, but I was trying to convince myself that everything would be okay. And she said that we should live in the same house and make it amicably, but spend less time with each other. And the less time that we spent with each other, the further that we drifted away from each other. And it was horrible. I knew deep down that something was going on, but I was just convincing myself that it wasn't. I ended up spending Christmas alone. I ended up spending my birthday alone. And then in March 2019, we had a trip booked to go backpacking around Cape Town. But she said that she didn't want to go. So I'd never been abroad before meeting this person before. So to go away on my own was like this huge thing. I honestly believe that I couldn't do it at the start, in all honesty. But I did. I managed to pluck up this courage to go to Cape Town on my own. However, a few days before leaving, I actually bumped into the person who said that she wanted to be single in a restaurant with another guy. And as much as this shattered my heart into a million pieces, it was also this huge sense of liberation. And it made me realise that we can't control other people's thoughts, opinions, words or actions. But we can only control the meaning and the response that we give to them. So I walked out of that restaurant and I felt, I can do this. I thought, I can do this. I can do this, right? And although I felt bad, I knew I could do it deep down. So I did. I went on this trip to Cape Town only just a few days after. And I honestly had the best time of my life. I felt like a new man. I felt on top of the world. But only until I come back to what was now an empty home. And at that point in time, I hated my own company and I hated the sound of silence. And that's all I had in that moment. And that's when the depression really started to kick in. I was on this deep downhill spiral. And I was desperate. I was looking for this happiness everywhere. I was so desperate. And I remember I was that desperate. Weeks, months went by where I was Googling how to be happy. Like Google had the fucking answers for my life. I was Googling how to be happy. I was so desperate. I remember I ended up turning to drink and drugs. And this is the person that is so anti-drug. And the person that maybe drunk a handful of times a year. And now I was drinking a handful of times a week, sometimes even a handful of times a day. Because I was so desperate for this happiness that I thought at the time was external. I was looking every single place, but other than from within. Because true happiness is homemade and it comes from within. And there's a big difference between happiness and true happiness. Happiness can come from those things that we get in the moment. and they don't usually last. It could be, say, a car, it could be a person, it could be a job, it could be a home. But the reality is, you could crash that car. That person could sadly die. You could lose the job and in return need to sell the home. But true happiness isn't getting what you want, it's wanting what you've already got. So never trade what you want most for what you want in the moment. And things were getting worse and worse and worse to the point that I had to take myself to the doctors. And they were so quick to push that prescription across the desk to say that you are depressed. But I decided not to take the prescription because I honestly believed that I hadn't yet exhausted all avenues. Even though I was at rock bottom at this time. But I managed to use my fear in my favour. Because growing up as a young 10-year-old child, I remember on my 10th birthday, I was sat at the top of the staircase at my mum's house. And I was crying my eyes out on my 10th birthday. And my mum said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I don't want to be double figures." I remember as a 10-year-old child, I'd lay on that bunk bed at the top there, and I'd put my fingers in my ears and I'd close my eyes. And I'd say to myself, this is what death is like. Just imagine that. Never to see a smile on your loved one's face again. Never to hear that soft-spoken voice of a loved one. Never to feel the tender touch of someone that you really love ever again. But for me, I managed to use my fear in my favour. And I was sat there crying one day. I was crying my eyes out, depressed. What am I going to do with my life next? But one single thought managed to completely transform my life. I was sat there bawling my eyes out on the sofa at my old house. And the thought that went through my mind said, could I live with the thought of dying with regrets? And I started to look back on my life and look at all the obstacles that I'd already overcome. Because only just a few years back, I was laying there on that hospital bed with zero brain activity. They wanted to switch that machine off on me. Surely if I can overcome this, I could overcome anything. Things got so bad, I remember I used to say going to work every day, I used to have to force myself up and out to work because I was so down and depressed. I used to say work was going to hell. I had to check in at hell every single day to pay for my membership in prison. And that prison was what we call a home. But then I realised that the only prison that we are ever in is the one that we have created within our own mind. And I realised that the nightmare that I was going through was in fact a dream for somebody else. Because there's so many people out there living on that cold, hard concrete, wishing that they could have traded places with me. And I'm sat there upset. And I've got a roof over my head, I've got food in my fridge, I've got clothes on my back and I've got shoes on my feet. And I was upset. But I managed to focus on the positives. Because what you focus on in life expands. You get more of what you focus on. So rather than counting all of my problems, I started to count all of my blessings. And I started to practice this daily gratitude. And I noticed that these small positive things started to come into my life. Because progress is happiness. And a little while down the line, many people said to me, are you not pissed off? Are you not upset? Are you not angry with those people who once caused you pain? And in all honesty, yeah, I was. At the start, I was so angry with these people that hurt me in the past. Whether it is the person that done my head in, whether it is my ex-partner for not telling me the whole story. Yeah, I was angry. But now I flipped that to being grateful. I'm so grateful for those people that I once believed were the source of my suffering. Because in life, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You can either be a victim or a victor of your past. And if you're still suffering today, and then I'm sorry to say, but you, my friend, are a volunteer. But that word anger is such a powerful word. Anger is one letter away from the word danger. Anger is the wind that blows out the lamp of the mind. And holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But forgiveness is the antidote. So forgive others, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Because if you're still holding on to that past pain, it may hold you back there forever. So you need to let go and grow. Because life's way too short to be angry, people. Life is for living. When I was in a coma, I wasn't conscious to decide whether to switch my life support machine off or not. And it was totally in somebody else's control. But I've noticed that many people who are alive and well have unconsciously pulled the plug on their own. Because death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside us while we live. So many people die at 25, but aren't buried until 75. And the graveyard is one of the wealthiest places on this earth. Just imagine all of those undiscovered and unused talents, skills and abilities that cease to exist. All of those would-haves, could-haves and should-haves that the world never had exposure to. And I personally don't want to perish filled with potential. But we've all been dying since the day we were born. Let the reality of death put urgency into living your life today. Because death is inevitable. Knowing this, why are we not running towards our dream life as if we were on fire? But when is it that people really start to live their life? I believe it's when they face death. A lost loved one. An incurable illness. And then suddenly they want to go out there and do all of the things that they've always ever wanted to do. But please believe me when I say that you don't have to wait for somebody you know to become seriously ill or die in order to take action today and go after what you truly want in life. Don't fear failure, fear regret. Make the pain of regret worse than any other pain that you could ever imagine. Because the pain of fear and failure is temporary. But the pain of regret will last a lifetime. So don't take your greatness to the grave. So envision this. You managed to meet your maker, your creator. And they said to you, how was your life on earth? Did you do all of the things that you wanted to do? Go all the places where you wanted to go? Say all of the things that you wanted to say? And you said no. No, I didn't. So they invite you to sit down at this desk. And on this desk are two big books. And they point at the first book. And they say, this is the manual that I've created for your life. So you pick it up. And you start to flick through. And you see pictures of all of those magical maternal moments with your mother. All those fun times growing up through childhood, teenage years, adulthood. And then you see all of these amazing things, all of the things that you were too scared to do. So you pick up the second book. And you flick through and you're looking at the pictures. Yes, your life is your life up to today. It's been an okay life. But suddenly you're flicking through pages of blank nothingness. And you're instantly overwhelmed with resentment, responsibility and regret, knowing full well you can never reapply to return and reattempt to relive that life that was there for you all along. Because your dream life is there, right in front of you, ready for the taking. You just have to reach out and grab it with both hands. Don't wait for the manual, make the manual. Because hell is the experience when you die, you meet the person that you were meant to be. So I challenge you to go out there and live your life to the fullest. But don't forget the reason why you're doing what you do. All of those loved ones, those people that you would regret not saying anything to, I beg you to pick up the phone after this, ring them and tell them how much they mean to you. Because one day, you won't be here to tell them. Or even worse, they won't be here to hear you. The greatest gift that you give to anybody is time and attention. So don't ever forget that.